It's 6 p.m. on a Wednesday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. Youth job creation and customized welfare topped the agenda of a government policy briefing session while President Park urged labor and management to resolve their differences. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken meets with Seoul's foreign minister and vice foreign minister to reaffirm the importance of international efforts, namely from China, to punish North Korea for its latest provocation. Asian shares tremble as global oil prices seem set to plummet, with Iranian oil re-entering the market while the Chinese economy is expected to slow down further. We begin at the nation's top office and the government's third policy briefing session with President Park. Related ministries pledged to do more to help college graduates in these tough economic times, with Park calling all members of society to share the burden. Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Improving quality of life, making people happier. That was the core of the government's third policy briefing for 2016. The session focused on creating new jobs for Korea's young people and providing customized welfare for all so that no one is left out. The government's labor and education reforms will continue, with universities reducing their admissions quotas and vying to better match the needs of students and employers. Given the current state of the labor market, President Park called on labor and management to yield and sacrifice in equal measure.
노사가 서로 양보하면서 고통을 분담해야 합니다. 지금 한쪽의 일방적 주장만으로 시간을 끌고 가기에는 우리가 처한 상황이 너무나도 어렵습니다. 금년에는 노동개혁을 반드시 완수하고 현장에 정착시킬 수 있도록 노사의 결단이 있기를 기대합니다.
Her remarks follow the announcement on Tuesday by the Federation of Korean Trade Unions that is withdrawing from a tripartite deal struck with the government and management in September. The deal was aimed at making Korea's labor market more flexible through a wage peak system and other measures. The umbrella union said the government had unilaterally pushed for reforms and drafted guidelines to make layoffs easier without consulting the union. Meanwhile, with youth unemployment topping 9% last year, the government had boosted this year's budget for youth job creation by 20% to $1.8 billion. As part of the plan, the so-called employment zones will be set up at the country's 17 innovation centers nationwide to help young job seekers find matching positions. In addition, related ministries pledged to do more to help citizens in regions outside of Seoul. To provide citizens with customized welfare, regional community centers will be revamped into welfare hubs for local residents. President Park asked local officials to better listen to residents' concerns so that their needs can be reflected in the government's plans. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Korean government once again urged the parliament to approve a counterterrorism bill that's still stuck. Shin Se-min reports.
The National Police Agency has joined the government's efforts to beef up Korea's counterterrorism initiatives. Speaking at a special government and ruling party consultative meeting at the National Assembly on Wednesday, the nation's police commissioner said the organization will turn its 140,000 officers into agents trained in counterterrorism techniques.
We will disperse the manpower to regions prone to security breaches and threats. We will also boost security on the cyberterrorism front.
The police chief added that 7 SWAT teams and 276 police units will be stationed around the country as emergency counterterrorism units. The move follows a report by the National Intelligence Service saying it has deported 51 foreign nationals over the past 5 years for suspected ties to terrorist groups. Of them, 7 people who had worked in Korea are reported to have joined ISIS after their deportation. In line with these efforts, the government has reiterated its call on the National Assembly to approve a counterterrorism bill aimed at protecting the public. Pointing to the recent suicide bomb blast in Jakarta, Indonesia, Seoul's second vice foreign minister Cho Tae-yeol said the ability to detect and prevent terror threats is crucial to handling similar attacks. The attack in Indonesia is considered the first in Asia carried out by Islamic State militants, raising concerns about the possibility of similar attacks in Korea. The future of the counterterrorism bill is uncertain, given that it is just one of many bills waiting for the parliamentary approval as the two main political parties iron out their differences. But in the meantime, there are concerns that Korea could be leaving itself open to vulnerabilities in its national security system. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A senior U.S. diplomat is in Seoul to discuss a coordinated response to North Korea for its latest nuclear test. As our Connie Kim reports, the two allies were also united in calling on China to play its part in sanctioning the regime.
U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken met with South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam in Seoul on Wednesday. The three reaffirmed their commitment to a strong and comprehensive UN resolution on North Korea following its fourth nuclear test this month.
This is a North Korea versus international community. So they understand that seriously how their wrong behavior will make them feel miserable.
Since North Korea's provocation, members of the six-party denuclearization talks have held a series of meetings to discuss possible countermeasures against the regime. That's upped the pressure on China, North Korea's close ally, to play a leading role in sanctioning Pyongyang, especially given its special relationship with Beijing.
It has more influence and more leverage over North Korea than any other country because virtually all of North Korea's trade goes to, from, or through China. So we are looking to China to show leadership on this issue.
Blinken is expected to press the issue when he meets with his Chinese counterpart, Zhang Ye-sui, on Thursday. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is also expected to make his own pitch when he visits China next week. South Korea's foreign ministry is also making its final push for a stronger sanctions resolution during meetings with members of the UN Security Council this week. As the meetings proceed, the focus of question will be what level of sanctions China is willing to impose on its traditional ally. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Asian stocks face another rough day as oil prices hit a 12-year low, fueled by fears of economic slowdown in China and the addition of Iranian crude to the markets. Oh Soo-young has the numbers.
Asian shares took another beating on Wednesday after a dismal forecast on global oil prices knocked investor confidence. Korea's benchmark Kospi fell 2.3% to close at 1,845 as heavy sell-offs continued. Japan's Nikkei fared worse, shedding 3.7% to a 14-month low. The Shanghai Composite Index also closed down 1%. On Tuesday, concerns about global oil prices intensified as trading rates remained below a 12-year low. February contracts for West Texas Intermediate plunged 3.3% to $28.46 per barrel on Tuesday, the lowest level since 2003. Brent futures were also trading below $29 per barrel to close at $28.76. The price drop comes amid investors' concerns about the economic slowdown in China, the world's second biggest economy and its second largest oil consumer, which announced its lowest economic growth rate forecast in 25 years. But the biggest punch comes from the lifting of international sanctions on Iran. On Monday, Tehran issued the order to turn on the taps, and it could increase its output by 500,000 barrels a day for the next 6 months, and up to 1 million thereafter. With these prospects, analysts predict that oil prices will likely fall even further.
Starting in February, when Iranian oil fully hits the market, it should add to the ongoing supply glut, and prices are likely to drop even further. And as the Chinese economy slows, its trade partners are also affected, further reducing the global demand for oil.
Underscoring the depth of the problem, the International Energy Agency has cut its forecast for global oil demand this year, saying that the global oil supply glut will last into late 2016. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Korea's topped Bloomberg's list of the 50 most innovative economies for the third straight year. But the index also shows Korea has a long way to go in terms of labor reforms. Hwang Ji-hye shows us where Korea stands in the global playing field.
Korea dominated Bloomberg's 2016 Innovation Index, topping the group of 50 countries that were surveyed. Germany took second place, while Japan, the United States, and China trailed behind. The index scored countries using factors like spending on research and development, concentration of high-tech public companies, and patent activity. Korea fared well in manufacturing value-added, high-tech, and R&D density, as well as tertiary efficiency, which gauges enrollment in higher education. But the Bloomberg report also shows that Korea is having a hard time realizing new technologies into actual products. It cites the country's startup environment, where engineers or scientists prefer to work with big conglomerates rather than venturing out to set up their own firms. On top of that, the report says the rigid labor market, represented by wages based on tenure and seniority, is dulling the advantages Korea can take from innovative behaviors. In fact, Korea's ranking for labor productivity stood at 39th. It's an issue the Finance Ministry has pledged to improve through labor reforms and active utilization of the country's creative economy centers to nurture more startups. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
The global economy faces numerous challenges in 2016. That's why politicians and business leaders gather in Switzerland to talk about everything from oil prices to climate change. Our Kwon So-ah was there at the opening of the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Ready for Davos? With the annual World Economic Forum kicking off Wednesday, anticipation hangs in the crisp air of the Swiss Alps town. Participants have been streaming in from around the world to put their heads and hearts together to talk about the economy and other pressing issues.
Our President Enrique Peña Nieto is going to be here. He's going to put our country in the context of the energy reform that we had.
Because it's my first time here, I'm also really excited because there are a lot of journalists from all over the world, and I can see how they do it and how we do it. Oh, I hope Obama will come, but I think that there were rumors that he will come, but I don't think so at the moment. Yes.
Some 250 journalists will keep their eyes and ears open on daily developments and who met whom and who said what at Davos. On the eve to the official kickoff, actor Leonardo DiCaprio had the spotlight for his activism on climate change. Generosity is the key to our future, is what he said as he was awarded a Crystal Award that honors artists for their contributions in improving the state of the world.
We simply cannot afford to allow the corporate greed of the coal, oil, and gas industries to determine the future of humanity.
Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the forum, said he hoped the participants make many friends, come up with transformative ideas.
I hope you go home and you are, as myself and all my colleagues, convinced that the future of our small global village can only be well managed if there is as much dialogue, collaboration, and cooperation.
The founder of the world's most recognized economic event stressed that the WEF is not just a conference, but an experience. And during the four-day event, Korea and Arirang TV will be actively taking part in that experience. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News, Davos.
And in this next report, our Kim Min-ji tells us more about the town of Davos itself after taking some time to check the place out for herself.
It's a small snowy town in the Swiss Alps, home to a well-heeled population of 11,000 people. During the winter, Davos is filled with skiers traversing the powdery slopes, as it's also home to one of the world's most famous ski resorts. In January, it's freezing cold with sub-zero temperatures throughout the day, so wherever you go, people are dressed in winter gear and snow boots to trudge through the snow.
Yes, it's my home, so it's for me very special. And what's very beautiful is you have snow, you have different seasons, You have summer, you have winter. I think that is very special. That's what we...
But Davos is better known as the host of the World Economic Forum. Preparations have been underway for months, with security tightened around the venue leading up to the event.
It's not always. It's to World Economic Forum is for the terrorists, and it's the police here. Yes, it's for the people, security.
That's definitely the case, as world leaders, business chiefs, politicians, and celebrities will be in town. In fact, while the permanent population stands at some 11,000, that number swells to around 30,000 during the forum period, when all delegates get here. But how do they get here? As for transportation, there are various ways attendees or tourists can get here. Private jets or helicopters, luxury limousines or buses. The train is also an option, and I'm here at one of the closest stations to the venue. To get around Davos, people with the right security passes can make use of the shuttle buses provided by the World Economic Forum. And for those traveling by bus or rented cars, you may want to head out a little early, as it can get pretty congested around the venue. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News, Davos.
Shifting gears now, science fiction becomes science fact. Robots may be overseeing our work in just 2 years' time. According to U.S.-based IT consulting firm Gartner, more than 3 million human workers will be supervised by robots come 2018. Gartner says robots are more efficient and can evaluate employees more objectively than their human counterparts. Gartner also predicts that more of our work will be data intensive and says that within the same time frame, 20% of all business documents such as market data and legal files will be completed by robots. A university in Pakistan has been attacked by Islamist militants. At least 20 have been killed, but the death toll is expected to rise. The incident occurred at around 9:30 a.m. local time on Wednesday at the Bacha Khan University in the northwestern city of Charsada. A group of gunmen armed with rifles and wearing suicide bomb vests scaled the rear of the school before storming the campus. Military troops quickly arrived on the scene and reportedly took down 4 of the assailants. Now, the Pakistani Taliban have claimed responsibility for the attack. The university is just about 50 kilometers from Peshawar, where 141 people, mostly children, were killed in a similar attack by the same Taliban group just over a year ago. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching.